What's up everyone, Darcblade here bringing you the next episode in my series of Mass Effect 3 multiplayer class guides. Today we are going to be taking a look at one of the characters that was released with the Retaliation DLC pack, the Turian Havoc Soldier. The Turian Havoc is a very good hit and run character. This is thanks to the propulsion packs that give it great maneuverability. It's stimulant packs that allow it to dish out a lot of damage as well as take a lot of damage, and of course its key signature move, the Havoc Strike. Now as always I spec my characters for the harder difficulties in the game. I put maximum points into Havoc Strike, putting points into incendiary strikes over force and damage. This is because Havoc Strike already staggers most opponents, and if you can stagger multiple opponents thanks to the incendiary strike, it means it's going to be more useful at controlling approaching opponents. I put points into weapon synergy over melee damage. Now melee damage is good, but I feel that weapon synergy is much more useful, especially on the harder difficulties when it is risky to get close to opponents. Lastly, I put points into force and damage over recharge speed. This is because I feel that with the weapons I use, the cooldown of Havoc Strike is already sufficient enough. Now for Stimulant Pack, I put points into survival over weapon damage. This is because I like the Stimulant Pack with the Turian Havoc to be more of a defensive mechanism. I put points into duration over capacity because I don't want the effects of the Stimulant Pack running out too soon, especially when I'm in danger. And lastly, I put max shields because, again, I'm trying to make the Stimulant Pack a more of a tanking move for the Turian Havoc. Now with Cryo Blast I put points into frozen vulnerability over recharge speed. This is because I like to increase the amount of debuff that Cryo Blast gives. That is also why I put points into Cryo Explosion over speed reduction. Anything that allows me or my teammates to do more damage to opponents is worth taking. Lastly, I took radius over duration. This is because I like to affect as many people as possible with the debuff of Cryo Blast. As for the passive abilities, these are down to personal preference. I personally went for weight reduction and power damage increase, as well as putting a few points into fitness to get some extra health and shields. As for weaponry, to be honest, the Turian Havoc is quite good with any weapon, although it seems to be really good with shotguns and assault rifles. I suppose it depends on how you play the Turian Havoc. If you play very aggressive, then the shotgun, something like the Riga Carbine, would be an excellent choice of weaponry. But if you do want to play a bit defensively or cautiously, which is advisable on the harder difficulties, then a good assault rifle would probably be the best weapon of choice. Now let's get into the main part of the episode and talk about the Turian Havoc Soldier's moves and abilities. Its first move, its signature move, is Havoc Strike. This bears great similarities to Biotic Charge that the Vanguards have. The primary difference being that instead of being propelled by biotic powers, the Turian Havoc is being propelled by its propulsion packs. This makes Havoc Strike a combat/tech move, so it's able to activate tech combos. This is quite useful because the Turian Havoc does have Cryo Blast, and thus you're able to activate your own tech combos. If you don't want to put any points into Cryo Blast, an alternative for setting up your tech combos would be to equip yourself with one of the tech type ammos you can get. For example, equipping yourself with incendiary ammo would give you the chance to create fire explosions that could be activated with Havoc Strike. Havoc Strike on its own is quite a strong move. It's able to stagger most enemies, giving you an opportune time to attack. You can follow this up with weapon fire or by a melee attack. The heavy melee works really well after the Havoc Strike. It's actually quite fun to use. One thing you should remember with Havoc Strike is that it is not Biotic Charge and thus will not potentially restore your shields. On the good side though, you do have stimulant packs to complement Havoc Strike. These give you a lot more control over your shields. For example, if you use them before you use Havoc Strike, you make your shields stronger, taking less damage. You also increase the actual damage output of Havoc Strike as well as your other weaponry. Now if you use the stimulant packs after you have used Havoc Strike, you can restore any shields you might have potentially lost. Now the second ability for the Turian Havoc Soldier is Stimulant Pack. Now all the Turians that belong to the Armiger Legion get the Stimulant Pack as an ability. The Stimulant Pack is a consumable ability you can use to buff your character. You can use it to restore any shields you've lost. You can use it to increase the actual effectiveness of your shield, basically increasing the amount of shields you have, and you can use it to increase your damage output. All of this makes the Stimulant Pack a very useful ability indeed. The only downside with the Stimulant Pack is they are consumables, and thus you have a limited amount of them. But Like grenades, you're able to replenish them by going to the ammo boxes that are scattered around the various maps in the game. You can also equip yourself in the permanent gear slot with the grenade capacity increase, which will actually increase the amount of stimulant packs you can carry. I always normally go with the grenade capacity increase when I'm using my Turian Havoc Soldier. Don't waste all your stimulant packs though, mainly use them in situations where you need to dish out a lot of damage or where you feel you're going to take a lot of damage. Also, if you are in a situation where you're almost dying, you've lost all your shields, pop that stimulant pack to instantly restore your shields. It's a great life-saving ability, and once you get used to it, you'll wish that all the characters had the stimulant pack. The third and final ability of the Turian Havoc Soldier is Cryo Blast. This is a tech-based move where you will freeze opponents. Opponents who don't have any armor, barriers or shield will be frozen in place, unable to move or even regenerate any health. Now for enemies who do have some sort of protection, instead of being flash frozen in place, they will instead have their movement speed reduced. Also, for opponents who do have armor, Cryo Blast will weaken the armor, reducing the effectiveness of it. Now, Cryo Blast already does have a nice debuff to it, but if you put points into Frozen Vulnerability, which will increase the effectiveness of the current debuffs, and put points into Cryo Explosion, which adds another 10% damage taken debuff on targets who are chilled or frozen, means that Cryo Blast has the potential of being one of the best debuffing abilities in the game. Cryo Blast can also be used to set up and activate tech combos. Tech combos set up with Cryo Blast are called Cryo Explosions. These only work though on opponents who are flash frozen, basically unshielded opponents. When an unshielded opponent is hit with a secondary tech move, they cause a Cryo Explosion. This is an AoE explosion that will chill or freeze any nearby opponents to the original target. The only other tip I can give with Cryo Blast is that it is a projectile-based ability, and thus you can use it to arc around corners and walls, hitting targets that are potentially out of your line of sight. Now, like I say, for the passive abilities, it's always down to personal preference, but for Armature Legion, I put points into reducing the weight of my weapons and to increase my power damage. As for fitness, I felt I had to put a few points into it, mainly to increase my health and shields, but also to increase my melee capabilities a little bit. Some people don't like to put any points in fitness, favouring putting all their points into Armature Legion instead to increase their actual damage output. This means though that players would have to use their skill and stimulant packs in order to stay alive. But it is possible. As for weaponry, I talked a bit about it at the start of the video, but it seems to be that the Turian Havoc Soldier is best with either assault rifles, shotguns, or at a push, submachine guns. For all-round combat situations, I tend to use the assault rifles, namely the Cerberus Harrier. Now, for aggressive gameplay, I would favour a shotgun like the Riga Carbine, or the Claymore. Now, the Turian Havoc Soldier is a Turian of the Armature Legion, and thus comes equipped with propulsion packs. This enables the Turian Havoc to move incredibly fast, especially when it comes to dodging. The dodge for the Turian Havoc is one of the quickest in the game. It also propels you quite a distance as well, to get you out of danger when needed. The Turian Havoc also comes with a nice set of melee moves. Its normal melee attack is quite strong, and its heavy melee attack is one of the best in the games. Basically, the Turian Havoc will jump in the air, propelled by the propulsion packs, and land on the ground, causing an AoE effect. Add to this a moderate amount of health and a good amount of shields means that the Turian Havoc will survive a lot longer than some other classes. Now, the last few tips I can give for the Turian Havoc Soldier is to utilise and make the most of its propulsion packs, the dodging mechanic. For example, with the Havoc Strike, there are a few frames at the end of the Havoc Strike that allow you to instantly dodge out the way to safety. So use this to your advantage to avoid dangerous or insta-death situations. Also, you're able to reload whilst you're dodging, so make the most of this, especially if you're using a shotgun like the Claymore. Now, there is a potential to have an all-melee spec with the Turian Havoc Soldier, but I am not a big fan of melee builds, and thus I haven't gone for one here, but I might try it out in the future, we'll see. Overall, the Turian Havoc Soldier feels like a jack-of-all-trades character. On the offense, it's very good at hit-and-run attacks thanks to the Havoc Strike and the offensive abilities of the Stimulant Pack. Whilst on the defense, it's very good at debuffing opponents for you and your teammates. You also have the chance to tank as well, thanks to the defensive abilities of the Stimulant Pack, drawing fire away from your teammates. However, you can only really do this tanking role if you put points into survival and max shields in the Stimulant Pack tree. Anyway, I've been Darcblade, bringing you my guide to the Turian Havoc Soldier in Mass Effect 3's multiplayer. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.